Testing 1, 2, excellent. So, good morning everyone and welcome to Youth Budget Talks 2025, brought to you by the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. Now, we're coming to you live from the Parliament channel, ParlView, and for those of you tuning in as you drive on the nation's road, good morning to you from Radio 105 FM. Now, before we dive into the exciting part of this morning, it's important that we highlight that national budgets are much more than numbers. It's our government's annual plan on how we will earn, spend, and invest. Now, it lets us know areas that we would like to prioritize, whether it's healthcare, whether it's youth development, and even national security. But like any budget, it doesn't operate in isolation. Global issues such as climate change, even the Russian-Ukraine wars that we should be familiar with, and even the shift in oil prices and global economies. These are things that trickle into our local economy, and it literally tells us how much we can spend, and most importantly, the areas where we have to be a bit more strategic with our spending. And that's exactly why Youth Budget Talks exists. This initiative was created to give young people like you and I a platform where we can amplify our voices, where we can question, and most importantly, understand how these processes work. Now, and it's important as young people that we have an appreciation for how decisions are made, and most importantly, ensure that our voices are contributed in this national discussion. Now, for those of you new to the Parliamentary channel, you don't know this voice, you don't know this face from a place, my name is Luke James Trim, and I'm proud to be your host for this morning's discussion. Now it's time to meet all moderators. Now we're going to kick things off with Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives and Member of Parliament for Princess Tong, Dr. Aiyna Ali, who is a healthcare professional and a qualified dentist, as well as a community activist with a passion for public service and youth empowerment. Give us a little wave. Next on our list is Opposition Member and Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, Mr. Hans de Vignes, who has over 20 years of experience in the media and entertainment industry and is passionate about empowering through promotion of education, youth development, and sustainable development growth. Next on our list, who is no stranger to us here at Parliament, is Miss Karina Nanan, who is the founder and president of the Willow Foundation, a PhD candidate in societal studies and a postgraduate representative at the University of Trinidad and Tobago, who has served in national leadership roles, including trustee of the Trinidad Youth Council, member of the UNFPA Youth Advisory Group, and Prime Minister of the 13th National Youth Parliament, reflecting her ongoing commitments to youth empowerment, governance, and sustainable development. And we have Mr. Ricardo Rollock, who is an operations analyst and projects lead in the quick service restaurant industry, where he focuses on training youth and middle management. He currently serves on the Supervisory Committee of a credit union, co-leads a national charity initiative that provides daily meals across Trinidad and Tobago, and is pursuing his MBA with the University of Bedfordshire, reflecting his strong commitment to leadership, youth development, and community service. And most importantly, we have you, our youth participants, who will be taking the stage and articulating your thoughts. Like I would have said yesterday, this is just a conversation. It's not an interrogation. This is your opportunity to use the power that is in this room. Parliament is doing something amazing by giving us a platform where we can, just be ourselves, just be young, and say the things that are bothering us, the things we would like to see happening in our beautiful country of Trinidad and Tobago. So once again, this morning is all about you. Now, at this moment, I'm going to pass it over to our very esteemed and able panel of moderators. Now and then I may interject, I may sway the conversation in a way if I realize that, some people are not being heard. I may call upon you, so you have to be very alert because this morning we are all participating. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Budget Talks, and I hand you over to our moderators.
Thank you. So good morning to all of you again. We would, start off the discussion in terms of what you can do is you can raise your hand. We want to keep contributions to a minimum of 2 minutes, just so that everybody here can get an opportunity to talk. So you can start off by raising your hands, or there is a microphone directly in the middle that you can approach, or you can also indicate and we can try to get a mic to you if you are a bit shy. We hope that you aren't. So one of the first questions we want to talk to you guys or ask you all about was, what was your view on the 2025-2026 budget, and what stood out to you the most? So, all right, we have one question already, so let's give it up for Christopher. Is it Christopher? It's, yes, what's your name, sir? Oh my gosh, Giovanni, my apologies, sorry. So good morning, Giovanni. We have a microphone. Would you be able to approach us to the floor? Thank you so much. Be sure to tell us the institution you represent, your full name for clarification, and go ahead with your contribution. Thank you, Giovanni.
So again, good morning, everyone. So I represent the University of the West Indies St. Augustine campus, in particular, the Department of Economics. And what stood out to me from the budget speech yesterday was when the Honorable Minister of Finance spoke about a lot of land use planning. Because I'm a very big proponent of urban economics. I believe how we utilize our space and spatial planning is pivotal for development, and traditional economics ignores that because you focus on just labor and capital, but you ignore the actual land, your land space. So I found it very interesting when he spoke about infrastructure boost, where, well, I aggregated the figures, so 1.9 billion for national transport and roads in the form of, the PTSC electric buses, the modern traffic systems, and that will serve to increase urban connectivity and also reduce congestion costs. And I also think traffic congestion is a very big negative externality when you consider autos and, well, I mean, cars, they only generate negative externalities. So I was glad when he spoke about that, because we need to have different ways in which we can go from place to place in a sustainable and safe manner. And also, the other thing that I found interesting was when he spoke about the housing market, where they want to create, I believe it was, 20,000 sustainable houses. And in Trinidad and Tobago, one of our major issues with housing is that the supply doesn't meet the demand, and that pushes up prices, and persons can't be able to afford it. So I'm glad that he's taking a supply-side approach to fixing this issue. And yeah, that's my contribution.
Thank you.
A pleasant good morning, everyone. I am Zain Bisoon, representing Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassadors this morning, and I also represent the Trinidad Youth Council at this year's Youth Parliament. First and foremost, I want to say that by no means I envy the works of our Honorable Minister of Finance. I would say that I'm pleased with the allocations that this budget has in store for us. However, I'm more concerned with how the money is actually utilized in those sectors, because we simply please the public by hearing large figures in certain sectors, but we do not really acknowledge how the money is actually utilized. I hear a lot of promises that I also really hope that it actually materializes, because of course that would affect the credibility moving forward. Furthermore, I also want to say that I saw some things regarding my analysis on the last budget compared to this one, is that I see the works on agriculture and the investments in agriculture, because I would have pointed out that many farmers, especially in rural areas, would argue that they don't have enough water, and the prices of seeds and stuff like that for their agriculture would be expensive and unpredictable. And I saw that there is a larger investment in agriculture in this year's budget, and the irrigation was also invested into, so I'm very happy. I also wish, furthermore, before I end today, to speak more on the over-reliance on our energy sector and the continuous reliance on revenue coming from there. And yeah, that's my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zain. Okay, so while persons are approaching the mic, I just want to invite persons who want to contribute. You can join the queue from on the back, so it'll be easier for you to, so we'll know how many of you want to contribute. Right? Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, that's a long line. Good morning again, everyone. My name is Terrell Chandler, representing UE Roytech. And what I appreciate and what I note about this budget is that how it was a balanced approach between addressing the immediate social needs and preparing the country for long-term growth. I also appreciate how the government's intense focus on education, healthcare, and youth development, particularly the investments in technology for schools and programs that encourage entrepreneurship and job creation. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Isaiah Hamid, and I am representing Cipriani College today. And before I begin, I wanted to say to everyone in the room, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to be heard, and of course, my colleagues for being here today. Now, here comes the catch, right? School-based violence has become a prominent social issue amongst youths. If a picture paints 1,000 words, then the videos circulating on social media are far more telling. When speaking about Jaydan Lalchan, who was allegedly bullied such that he committed suicide, the president of Tutor noted that the Student Support Services Division was severely understaffed and under-resourced. He also called for social workers and counselors in every school. Where better to find an allocation of funds than in a budget with a focus on youths? After all, education did receive the largest allocation. However, I did not hear anything relating to such. I did hear the Honorable Minister of Finance when he said police officers would be stationed at various schools. But I do wonder, would this be sufficient? Because this is an approach we have already tried, yet school-based violence is still a prominent issue. Further, the Honorable Minister for Homeland Security said it may be time to try child offenders as adults. However, research by the US Department of Justice and the Sentencing Advisory Council in Australia say that simply increasing the severity of a punishment does not deter crime. Perhaps the approach suggested by Mr. Lumpkin can influence the certainty of being caught, which is vastly more effective at deterring crime, especially when paired with adequate consequence according to the literature. Simultaneously, it tackles the mental health issues faced by youths such as Mr. Lalchan, and it can also assist with root cause analysis. 3 birds, 1 stone. I'll say that's a hell of a name. If the problem is left to fester, the emotional and financial toll may be too large for us to bear. I know the budget is not finalized and must still be debated, and perhaps this may be food for thought as the social investments and safety net mentioned by the Minister of Finance. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution.
Pleasant good morning. My name is Meghala Mohammed. I represent Swaha Hindu College in Sangre Grande. And today I just want to discuss that I do believe the budget presentation aimed to lower our debts while helping households. And as we begin to discuss, I am certain that we will touch on the concerns of our nation, as it is obvious that every year, as the budget is presented, some persons may not be pleased. However, something that really impressed me was the Women's Health Fund, which aims to provide educational institutions with sanitary products for young women. Having been thinking about an initiative like that myself, I was pleasantly surprised and really impressed by this initiative as it seeks to also educate young men and women about women's health. And in addition, I look forward to seeing how this is really implemented in our schools and our institutions. And that being said, new initiatives were also introduced relating to taxes and the exemption of VAT on certain products. So, we just have to look forward to seeing how all this is implemented so that our revenue will really increase. Thank you.
Thank you for your contribution.
Good morning, moderators, fellow youth, and the listening and viewing public. My name is Taria Marie Weeks, and I'm an upper 6 student at the Barpoi Secondary. I speak as one of the many people, young persons who are presently pleased with the budget this year, and we welcome the meaningful change, opportunity, and equity. I am pleased and happy with the emphasis on education, housing, as well as new employment fund in the budget. However, some of my questions and concerns lies in how much of the education, housing, security, employment funds are capital, like new investments, instead of recurrence, like salaries, stuff that we are spending stuff on again. And is there flexibility within that? As well as I would say to Dr. Ayan Ali, the MP of Francistown, I am from that area as well, and many times we see that these big projects, they more benefit the schools in the urban areas. We see Port of Spain, we see San Fernando getting stuff like that. So my question is, will rural schools, especially in areas like Barport, Murga, Tableland, those areas, receive equitable funding for infrastructure, upgrades, internet, labs, staff and maintenance? And how will the government ensure rural, remote, and hinterland schools receive equal shares on upgrades? And lastly, with our GDP and the growing fiscal deficit, right, are we investing enough in diversified industries beyond the oil and gas, or are we limiting ourselves to just oil and gas? So, and can we expand to other industries such as technology, renewable energy, and the creative economy? And should there be a concern on the emphasis still placed on short-term expenditure versus long-term income-generating investments? Thank you.
And Karina, as our next participant approaches the mic, just to add another layer to the question that's already going about. Now, when you think about the fiscal package for 2026, on the surface, it seems as though this government was able to somewhat deliver on their campaign promises. And now we are seeing in certain areas, people are somewhat, getting what they wanted to hear out of the budget. But now the million-dollar question now is, when you think down to the level of young people, does this budget adequately reflect our priorities and our dreams and our aspirations as the youth? So I think that's an important question, just to add a different layer to the conversation that's already happening. So you're free to go.
So good morning, everyone, moderators and my fellow youths. I really like to see a lot of youths here today, and I see them and they are engaging in a lot of meaningful conversation. Before I get to your question, though, however, I must take this moment to really and truly commend the Minister of Finance for producing, might I dare say, one of the best budgets we have probably heard of in the past 10 years. I must say that, take that moment, because given, the past administration, we see that the Minister has utilized majority of the resources that he met when he came into office. And I think it's really and truly, he took his time and he produced a meaningful budget. And to answer your question, my thoughts on the budget was that, yes, it was a very well thought out budget. It kept in mind the youth specifically, because there were a lot of mention of youth initiatives this coming budget. And he also did prioritize, besides the youth, he also prioritized technology specifically. There were a lot of tech talks in this budget, and I would have loved to also see how exactly these technology will be incorporated. He also did make mention of technology in the healthcare system with regards to medical IDs being online. So therefore it gets rid of the paper-based system, and it would eliminate the factors of records being lost. So really and truly, my thoughts on the budget was that it was a very good budget. He really did take the citizens of our nation into consideration when he was planning it. And I think I will look forward to see where he also makes changes in the coming days. So thank you.
Can you say your name and your institution before you go?
Yes, my apologies. I am Rajiv Ramkisoon, representing the institution of Shiva Boys Hindu College from Penal DB. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. I just want to add something, much like Luke did a little while ago. As we approach your microphone, were there any measures announced that surprised you or that you all strongly agree or disagree with? We'd love to hear them. Yes, you can go back. But yes, go ahead.
While the mic is being adjusted, You are free to join the queue for those of you who have questions that you would like to ask. Don't be shy, so we'll have an idea of who's next, okay? Thank you.
For the next participant, I just wanted to touch a bit on what Ms. Taraya said. Yes, so you mentioned Princestown and the rural areas are not, well, in your opinion, not receiving the same allocations as other schools. So what I wanted to say on that is that I think that all schools are given the same amount of allocations, and it's also based on the needs of the area and of the school. So it's not really because it's a rural area, you don't receive as much allocations compared to probably one of the cities or such. So yes, the Minister of Education has his contribution to make for the budget as well, and I'm sure there are a lot of goodies that you will hear. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sanya Rupnarayan, and I'm coming as a representative from the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago. So if I had to use two words to really describe my thoughts on the budget, I would say very ambitious, because it assumes that the energy prices in oil and gas are going to be lowered, especially given the recent geopolitical events, which determines the global pricings that suggest price reduction and stability in the commodity market, that being the oil and gas. Much effort has definitely been focused on the lower income groups in society because of the fragile state of our local economy. The Minister of Finance, the Honorable Devendranath Tanku, seems to be very hopeful that these measures apply immediate relief by ensuring that the economy does not become stagnated. This would then affect everyone in a negative way. As a result, the lowering of local gas prices and tax reduction and VAT removal on basic food items is definitely intended to bring benefits to the population. However, with regards to certain areas that may affect our young population, several initiatives appear to be very promising. These would include the creating of the links of AI to education and training to the profession, as well as the reintroduction of the laptop distribution to every Form 1 student in the new academic year, along with the 2,000 laptops gifted to us by the Indian government, as well as the expansion of the physical infrastructure, for example, the UE Debe campus, which supports our country's flagship educational program. And I would also like to touch on the expansion of programs such as CDAP to more pharmacies and citizens, along with the upgrades to our neglected facilities like the Kova Children's Hospital. Other measures include the enhanced access to free prescription drugs through CDAP and strengthening the Children Life Fund. So while I do not envy the job of the Honorable Minister, I hold him in high praise of the outcome of the budget. Thank you.
As more persons are approaching the floor, we're just adding some additional questions. Those who are in the back, if those who are sitting, if you all will feel free to make your contribution towards it, right? So you can use this opportunity as well to share if there are points that you think stood out specifically to the priorities of young people, and if there were specific projects that you found extremely impactful or will not be as impactful as you would like to think. And as Ms. Weeks would have contributed on her concerns about her region and its schools, if there are concerns you have that will affect your community, school, or future career opportunities, okay? So we're just adding some more points to your contribution. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tamira Pereira, and I hail from Cipriani College. So regarding the budget that was read yesterday, first of all, I would like to say firstly that I really appreciated the measures regarding affordable housing for youth, as well as the reduction of contract labor within the government. I think fixed-term contracts are a nuisance and should be rid of immediately within our society. Personally, regarding the prioritization of the increase of government revenue via taxation, what I would like to say is that I do think a lot of the measures used by government to increase revenue are very reliant on the domestic are very reliant on the domestic our country itself rather than relying on foreign exports from outside of the country. So we see a lot of measures like taxation, custom and duties and whatnot, but however that relies directly on the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And so I would like to see more being done to increase our foreign revenue outside of oil and gas. First, to further expound on a point that was brought up earlier, somebody mentioned the orange economy. I do think that Trinidad and Tobago is at a particular point right now in global society where we have we are very poised to invest into our cultural economy. We have so much cultural assets within this country, be it dance, be it music, be it storytelling, be it so many different things. And culture is something that can really turn around a really quick increase in revenue, and it is also something that is extremely limitless, whereas with taxation, it is very limited. So I would really like to poise that to our government ministers to look into investing into our creative industries within the society. Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, so before our next contributor, we want to just turn the attention to the fellow MPs who are here if they would like to give some responses.
Mine is in particular to Tamara and her contribution about the orange economy. As someone that basically existed in the orange economy for 20 years and I've seen what it can do in terms of revenue, is also something that I love to hear about, and I would love to hear more about. Is something that I also will mention during my contribution. But you also mentioned, there's this heavy reliance on domestic revenue. When you look at some of the things that happened over the past few years, or just going back a little bit, how many people here know that there are Samsonite suitcases made in Trinidad and Tobago? You all knew that? A lot of people don't know that. And it's because we have the Phoenix Park Industrial Estate and we have other industrial estates like that that create the opportunities for us to manufacture and export. Now, not getting too much into the politics of it, but when you look at different things and the way they can trickle down and affect our competitive advantage, for example, the increase on electricity for industrial and commercial, that lessens somewhat of our commercial advantage as a country. So these are the things that I look at as a whole when assessing the budget. Obviously, there are some things that are good in terms of the people. There are a lot of things that people like and can be of benefit to the country. But, you look at it, you look at the good and you also look at the bad.
Thank you so much, MP Hans, Vignes. Dr. Ali, do you have anything you'd like to contribute at this time? Okay, great. So, Sarah, we bring it back to you.
Good morning. I'm Sarah Lynch. I'm representing Saltery Sustainable Development Foundation. I would say that generally the budget was very balanced and equitable, and I really appreciated the fact that there was funds allocated to women's health. It shows for the period poverty eradication. This shows that the government is being very forward thinking and meeting international sustainable developmental goals. Further, I would say with regards to landlord business surcharge, I could foresee this possibly affecting young persons who is going to rent, and also like students at UE who is going to rent. I could foresee that landlords may have exorbitant rental cost as a result, so that they could kind of curb their contribution to taxes. So I think the government should have some sort of comprehensive rental market regulations, like formal landlord registry, which where they could monitor like rental costs to make sure that landlords aren't being unreasonable in the cost of rent. I would add further on. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah.
Hello, good morning. My name is Deja Geshad, and I am representing the School of Point Fortin East Secondary. So, my initial thoughts on the 2026 budget fiscal was that it was a very balanced budget. However, I felt like until individual ministries come out and explain where these remaining fundings will be allocated to in each sector, the budget was lacking a lot of critical information, and it was vague in some areas. I would like to comment on period poverty, as they are emphasizing and supporting women. Me being a girl myself, I would like to say that this is a great initiative, starting this woman fund. So we'd like to thank the Minister of Finance for that, as well as I would like to comment on the raise of retirement age. In Trinidad and Tobago, we see now that lifestyle expectancy diseases are rising, as diabetes, etc., and raising the age from 60 to 65. I come into question, would people of 65 be healthy enough to work? And after working until 65 years, will they be able to enjoy their retirement? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
And you know, Karina, Deja touched on a really important point, because I think before we started and we asked all participants what are their thoughts on the budget, the word vague popped up. But like the Deputy Speaker of the House would have articulated to us, ministers still have to give their contribution. So I would like all moderators, anyone who would like to volunteer their expertise and their services, to just explain to all participants and those viewing and listening online how that process works, because the budget that was presented yesterday is not everything as a whole, I should say. So please walk them through that process, please. Like when the ministers have to present on their individual contributions here.
Okay, so on Friday, we will have the response from the opposition leader, Ms. Penelope Beckles, and this will be followed by the debate where we would have members from the government and members from the opposition giving their contributions. And when members of the government give their contributions, some of them are also ministers. So in their contributions, you would hear quite an extensive and expansive explanation for all of these points that were given, because the Minister of Finance would have been there for days if if he had to explain all of it. So this is where the debate comes in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. The floor is back to the contributors. Go ahead.
A pleasant good morning to all. My name is Serena Patterson, and I am deeply honored to be representing Northeastern College at this year's Youth Budget Talks. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Honorable Minister of Finance for carrying the tremendous weight of having the country upon his shoulders. It is not an easy task, but it was executed exceptionally, which I must commend him for. As a business student, I've learned that economics is the allocation of resources and in an efficient manner. This year's budget wasn't just about efficiency. It was about vision. Promise made, promise kept. It invests in youth, innovation, sustainability, and inclusivity. From empowering young entrepreneurs to supporting education, women's health, and environmental sustainability, this budget lays the foundation for a stronger, more equitable Trinidad and Tobago. However, whilst the vision is strong, vision alone is not enough. Implementation and accountability must follow. Because every dollar must deliver and every promise must produce. When a nation invests in its women, children, and educators, it invests in its soul. And when it listens to its youth, it invests in its future. As young people, we can take a breath, but not for too long, because the real work only begins now, holding leaders accountable, contributing to our community, and ensuring that promises made today become the progress for tomorrow. I have faith in this government's administration, faith that they would not just build our future, but the future of our children, a future full of opportunity, progress, and hope. To address Ms. Karina's question on school. I live in Biche. It's a very far area, and I go to school Sangrandi. It takes me approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes to get to school, when it should be a mere 45 minutes. Sometimes we have to question if the main road is a back road. And the main road, Kunapusa, the main road, is now a dump. It was abandoned. So I urge the Standing Finance Committee of Trinidad and Tobago to restructure and strengthen its policies relating to the oversight of various government departments. To also, in terms of gate, the government, let me get the exact figure. The government allocated approximately $8.766 billion to education and training. I'm a business student. My dream is to become a certified chartered accountant. However, if I pursue CAPE and pursue a degree at the University of the West Indies, that does not ensure my future as a chartered accountant. I still have to pursue ACCA. So that I think that it should be taken into consideration considering the amount. Thank you.
Sharina, thank you for your contributions. After we'll discuss the pathway in terms of ACCA, because it's actually a qualification that I hold as well, right? So we'll discuss the pathway. We understand and hear the concerns, and I really look forward to the budget debate because we'll really hear the intricacies of those things. A lot of what you touched on are local government issues. So we are waiting to hear what the Minister of Local Government has to say and exactly what is happening with that allocation. And then from there, you know, as an opposition member, I must say we'll find the holes in the statements made, and we'll also touch on the things that were done by the previous administration, because, you know, quite a few items in the budget are continuations of things that were happening before. When you look at even digital transformation, there was a whole program called D-Hub, which pointed towards us innovating as a nation and creating software to support our technological needs as a society. So we look forward to it. And thank you so much for your contribution.
Before I pass the floor, Dr. Ali, do you have any contributions to the conversation thus far?
No contributions, really. I think that you all are doing a great job so far, and I...
But Karina, before Hayden contributes, I think a really important topic or a really important word that came up from her contribution was the word accountability. And I think as young leaders, I think a question that we are oftentimes asked is, how can we keep the government accountable? So before Hayden contributes, I don't know if Ricardo or yourself, as you know, youth activists, can, you know, give our participants 1-2 tips on how we as young people can keep the government accountable. Because when you make a promise, there's a level of accountability that is introduced in that agreement. So walk us through that.
I like the fact that you mentioned accountability as well, Sharina. Something that stood out to me as well, when you said, you know, as youth, we sometimes, that's all right? Yeah. We sometimes take a breath. It resonated with me because, you know, we normally hear about all the allocations and so forth, but as MP Devine said, actually go into the debate and so forth. Then we're going to get into the meat of the matter. And then after that, I believe that's where we go to the committee stage and so forth. And I think that's where we're actually going to see where things are going to get deep. And I agree to the point in terms of accountability. Because, you know, over time, we will hear about, you know, the big words, deficits and so forth and so forth. But if we continue to do what we continue to do, we're going to continue to get what we have been continuing to get. So in terms of a deficit, we need to focus on the bigger things. And accountability is at the center of that. One question that I want to ask, though, to the team. We heard about the age in terms of retirement. And, you know, in the public space, there will be a number of persons who would be a bit concerned, right? Because we would be at that age at some point. What are your thoughts in terms of the retirement age? I know that might be something that might be far in your mind, but I think it's worth mentioning now as well.
Floor is yours, sir. You can go ahead.
Good morning, mediators and fellow colleagues. My name is Hayden Grant, and I am here representing Pleasantville Secondary. I would like to start off by commending the Honorable Minister of Finance for taking on this burden, but the word vague was used, and I think it was a good one. Promises made were promises kept, but were those promises made off of needs or wants? Let's start off with the cost of living. So, we were given tax exemptions for table salt, Morbi, coconut water, locally sourced pumpkins, watermelons, cucumbers, lettuce, and tomatoes. Why was that entire list important? Because was there no mention of flour, sugar, milk, things that are used in the common household? I would also like to bring up the $1 gas reduction for super. Large trucks carrying food do not use super, they use diesel. They did not see a decrease. So this means that to get produce and to get stuff by retail stores is going to see the same high prices. And I do not believe that is okay. Because a lot of struggling families, north, south, central, the entire country, use flour on a daily basis, bake, roti, we all love bread, especially me. And I do believe these are pressing issues. As well, education in terms of laptops and AI training. Yes, I do agree that Form 1s are important, but I do not believe they should be the priority. Right now, Form 3 students are preparing to choose their certain subjects, business, science, pre-tech, those subjects. And in many schools, they require laptops for subjects such as technical drawing, IT, which are becoming very popular fields. But these laptops, AutoCAD, Word, Excel, programs needed are very expensive. And a lot of parents are not able to meet those needs. So their children do not end up in those programs. I believe this is disadvantageous to them. The Form 1s, they have 3 years. The priority should be set on the Form 3s and the Form 4s, now going into those programs, giving them the stepping stone to be able to go on to university or continue CAPE. As well, GATE and bursaries, means tests. As someone will mention, the means test is unfair. Straight and simple, no beating around the bush. A lot of persons who are in need are receiving less funds than those who are better off than them, receiving more money. And I'm not shy to say this, but because of connections. I do not believe this is fair for anyone. Not myself, who is going into university, or any of children looking to go into university either. I believe that these opportunities should be fair and equal for everyone. That is the end of my contribution. Thank you.
Thank you, Hayden. As the remaining of participants approach the mic, we want to remind you to please keep your contributions within a time frame of 2 minutes and under, because we do have a queue of 14 other members waiting to make contributions, okay? Thank you so much. Go ahead, ma'am.
Hi, good morning. My name is Leanne Matura Singh, and I'm representing the University of the West Indies and the Department of Economics, as well as the Economic Society of the UWI. My contribution today is somewhat like my other colleagues, but I want to focus a little bit on the allocation given to the Ministry of Local and Rural Development, specifically the Disaster Management Unit plan that the Minister of Finance put forth. While I do agree with that there should be a priority area, I do think there's one word missing within this term. It should be disaster risk management. We are a small island developing state. Our geographical positioning and our culture puts us at risk for many climate disasters. And while it is good that we manage these events, it's also that we reduce our vulnerabilities. Vulnerabilities include resistance, exposure, and resilience. We need to build our resilience, and the only way that can be done is if the government takes the initiative with that. And it comes down to us as youth as well to understand that everything that we want from the government, from the economy, is set in natural resources. If we do not maintain our resources and utilize it in a sustainable manner. Sustainability meaning meeting the needs of the generation today without compromising what is for tomorrow. So the only way we can do that is if we transition and we change how we view the usage of our resources, and we also understand the limitations of Trinidad and Tobago. The big economic question of unlimited ones versus limited resources. So it comes down to where we utilize our allocations, how we utilize them, and are we doing so sustainably. So I just want to leave some rhetorical questions for young persons as myself. When I look at the budget, is this going to contribute to my development? Is a developed Trinidad and Tobago viewed traditionally as an increase in GDP, or is it viewed as a reduction in unemployment, inequality, and poverty, and the quality of those things? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Before, I just want to ask some of the persons who have not yet contributed to just come more to the front. We'll take you two after, okay? Just to give the persons an opportunity to contribute. So can I get the person from St. Joseph Convent? Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Zaya MacDonald and I represent St. Joseph's Convent, St. Joseph. Something that really stood out to me in this budget was the minister's allocations or thoughts on our culture. Cultural preservation is something that's very important to me. And when going through the budget, I noticed that maybe less than 1,000 words were designated to talking about our culture. You know, our culture is something like former colleagues brought up the orange economy. Our culture is something where we can capitalize off of. Of course, we can ethically capitalize off it, and we can bring in more foreign exchange and contribute to the forex that we have within the country. So the minister would have said that according to Section 2A of the National Lotteries Act, the instant lottery surplus is supposed to be paid into the Sports and Culture Fund, but within the last administration, no funds were going into sports and culture. And I think that can be very discouraging for people of our country. Like, for example, recently, a state organization, the NGC, would have pulled out of sponsoring about 3 steel bans within our country, and steel pan is one of the most important things I think that we focus on when it comes to sharing our culture with the world. So if steel pan is not getting the funding that it needs, what about other aspects of our culture? What about our food, our dance, our other talents within the country? If something as big as steel pan is not being funded, what does that say for the rest of our culture? So I think that more needs to go into focusing on our cultural preservation and our heritage, because that can be something that we can use to benefit us and something that we can use to attract international investors into Trinidad and Tobago. So I think that more needs to be said about our culture. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contribution.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Javon Jofield. I'm a representative of the National Youth Ambassadors and a student at Trinity College, Mocha. What stood out to me, firstly, was that the Minister of Finance actually took the time to listen and implement the changes that the last year's youth budget talks wanted, such as the repayment of schools, right, especially the UADB campus that was abandoned for a while, and also the distribution of devices to students as well. Another thing that also stood out to me was that he actually wanted to implement AI training to various teachers so that instead of them being left behind compared to the students who know more of technology than them, they're actually able to use AI so that they can merge it with their teachings and actually able to put it forward instead of trying to dispel it or not use AI and try to go with a traditional method that may be outdated throughout the years that come in. Now, lastly, what I wanted to talk about was that, as my fellow colleague Hayden spoke about, with the Form 1s not needing laptops, I agree with him with a sense, but not fully, as I would more say that the Form 1 should be introduced to the use of laptops because of the transition from primary school to secondary school. and so that they will be able to know how to use Word, Excel, Google Docs, etc., so that when they reach in Form 3, that they have a much simpler time of using these laptops and even other devices to help them further down in the subjects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. As persons approach the mic, we just wanted to invite some of our youth organizations as well to think of the question, because I'm giving you opportunity to prepare a response. What can Parliament and youth organizations do to ensure youth perspectives to continue to shape national decision making beyond this forum? So I'm giving opportunity for persons who belong to youth organizations to compile a response to that question, okay? Thank you, sir.
Hi, good morning. My name is Michelle Husband. I am representing the Envision Foundation and by extension the University of the Southern Caribbean School of Business and Entrepreneurship. So initially my thoughts on the budget was that it was very vague in the sense of I would call it ambitious. However, it repeated a lot of political talking points and lacked the transparency that was promised to the citizens. Many initiatives were grouped under large umbrellas like terms of modernization and transformation with little explanations of delivery mechanisms. However, I was very pleased with the implementation of the Employment Fund of $475 million paired with the $310 million from the Unemployment Fund, which is meant to create sustainable jobs. As well as, I'd like to commend the Honourable Minister on the reintroduction of the laptop initiative. However, my question is, how is this sustainable to purchase approximately 18,000 laptops annually for distribution rather than equipping these schools with relevant infrastructure to facilitate digital learning services in which each student can access? And my last point is that I would have recognized that we are still heavily dependent on our oil and gas sector, especially now with the reintroduction of the Dragon gas deal. What additional measures are being implemented beyond taxation to generate sustainable revenue and diversify the economy? Thank you.
I'd like to invite Dr. Aiyna Ali to make a contribution.
All right, so as it pertains to the laptops, if you've been following the relationship that the Prime Minister of Trinidad created with India, you would know that India also donated some of these laptops. So in case you're wondering where we're getting these funds from, we're also getting contributions and assistance from other countries.
And just to put in a point there, during the previous administration, laptops were also given to schools. There was an extreme amount every year. When I was on the board at iGovTT, it's one of the things that we dealt with. And you mentioned vague and some different things about the budget and sustainability. The main point that I want to raise in this room to you all to think about is when you look at internationally what is expected in 2026 per barrel of oil, it's $52. The budget that was presented yesterday, what the figure presented was $73 per barrel of oil. When you look at that difference, it begs a lot of questions. I'm not going to raise any more than that, but I just want to put that in the air for us to think about when we talk about sustainability.
Thank you to our members of Parliament for their responses. Would now like to hand it back to the contributors on the floor. Sir?
Good day. My name is Dylan Bob. I am a representative of the Diabetes Association of Trinidad and Tobago and an upper 6 student at Azure Boys College San Fernando. Pertaining to the same point Minister Hans de Vignes just made, in terms of sustainability, I would also like to know how the government plans to achieve the SDG goals that we have to meet by 2030 that we signed on. Additionally, I'd also want to know how the UN's 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, specifically SDG Goal 3.4, that states reduces NCD premature mortality by 1/3 is being controlled and dealt with in the country. Because right now, as we know, Trinidad and Tobago as a whole deals with NCDs as a prevalent, almost pandemic situation, and I want to know how we could help to fight and combat that as best as possible. Additionally, I would also like to bring notice to the Jaipur Limb Camp, which is a commendable effort by the minister. However, is this a sustainable effort as well? Or should we try to pivot in such a way that we stop or try to minimize those that would have to suffer and get their feet amputated as best as possible? Because as we know, they are selecting 800 applicants from October to November this year who would be available for this opportunity. However, after that, will this be continued or was this a one-time situation? Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to invite the persons who are still yet to contribute to please make their contribution. Thank you.
So just before we continue, there is going to be a permanent camp that will be set up. The Prime Minister did say that at the opening of the camp. So at the moment, it's 800 people. And you did mention that we should try to find ways to not let this happen, but at the same time, you know, there are various ways in which a person can lose a limb, and we can't prevent that. So while there is no real prevention, we try to find an alternative, and I don't think there is anything bad or negative or non-sustainable, as you said, about providing limbs for persons.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali.
Good morning to the host of today, good morning to the members of Parliament, and good morning to the youth co-moderators for today, and good morning to the bright and vibrant youth in the house this morning. My contribution is my perspective on the budget is basically viewing the budget as seeing big figures, seeing big movements, but movements allowing me to put me on a scale to measure what extent are we progressing in this nation. I viewed the budget at some point, a lot of big talks and big promises, but I had to sit back and realize that a lot of big talks and big promises is not fruitful for progress. I find it very ironic that this government proposed that they would like to raise the revenue from the impact the agricultural sector have in this country from under 1% to 5% in the upcoming years. But I see a deduction in the allocation of finances to the agricultural sector this year. It allows me to think at what extent and what seriousness do you prioritize the revenue that we can gain in this country. I would think as a developing country, our priority should be to make money. Now, I would say this because I watched at the budget as seen something as painting big pictures but missing the steps. And any good planning director would tell you that you must know where you are to consider where you are going. So I watch at the budget to the extent of agriculture as basically they're skipping the step by proposing a new program for 3 years, but basically overlooking the current initiatives that it had in place by the previous government. Allow me to shed a light on the Youth Agricultural Homestead Program. Students who have sacrificed 2 years of their life, now to be told that they would have to go into a new program to spend 3 more years of their life. I'm not seeing that as essential of using our current resources and people to maximize productivity. We talk about exports in the agricultural sector, but what attention is being paid to the import bill? These youths from the Agricultural Youth Homestead Program are significantly equipped to manage this deduction of the food import bill. So I would like the current government in-house at the moment to shed light on that and basically accommodate the students of the Youth Agricultural Homestead Program. I want to shed light on the education system as well. In terms of education, the big talk is around the laptops and the allocation there is. But in terms of the small resources, a lot of schools out there is lacking those resources. So we speak about giving them laptops, but not every school in Trinidad and Tobago have Wi-Fi. And I would tell you as a youth, a laptop without Wi-Fi cannot work. So I would like them to pay attention in basically networking, in the networking part that they said in implementing more Wi-Fi within the schools. The feast wasn't for Abraham alone, so allow me to be short, but just to commend the government on the initiatives they took of catering to the unemployment that we have in this country by hiring more police officers, by hiring more prison officers, firefighters, and persons from the Board of Inland and Revenue. But I have to criticize to what extent do one prosper by pushing down the next one? Because with that being said, qualified persons could now fit these positions, but persons who was under the CPEP and URP without qualifications, they are now unemployed. Thank you.
Before you leave, could you just remind us of your name and the institution?
My apologies. My name is Tahir Goodrich from the Willow Foundation.
Okay. You gave some really strong points there to hear. And, you mentioned, we're missing a few steps and so forth, or the government missed a few steps. But I would encourage you as well to pay close attention as the debate goes along in the next couple of weeks. And I think that's where we'll really get the meat of the matter. Before the next person comes, I want to invite, someone from one of the other youth organizations, just to take a stab at the point that the question Karina proposed earlier. What can, parliaments and our youth organizations do to ensure that our youth perspectives continue to shape the national, decision-making in our country? Because this is something that affects us, not just today, but the youth of the future. Yeah.
Hi. Check 1 2. Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Nikolai Rampasad, and I am representing the Youth Parliamentary Network. I think I'm well known in this space, but for the students, welcome. So definitely, I've been a part of a lot of youth organizations in terms of on the executive level, and of course, we work closely with the Parliament, Karina, all of us on the front right. So what I would say is definitely more outreach. From what I've been listening to the students is there seems to be a little bit of, they're not too familiar on how the process works. And that's no fault of theirs, because if you tell a young person, okay, sit and look at Parliament for 3 hours, they're really not going to do that, right? They're going to look on the reels, okay, what was the bacchanal, who telling who to sit down, whatever, right? Exactly. So I would say definitely more outreach, right? Social media is the tool that we need to use, but on the youth organizations part of it, from someone who works closely with the Parliament, I would say take your organizations to the public gallery, sit in a debate, sit in for the budget, sit in for Standing Finance Committee, and witness first-hand democracy at work. Parliament is an institution where you come and you look at both the government, both the opposition, look at how laws are being debated, policy, legislation. So definitely for youth organizations, I would say take that opportunity, because just call the Parliament, let them know, and they will be more than willing to accommodate. On the flip side of it, youth organizations, you all also need to take the responsibility to also get to the grassroots levels, right? Don't wait for the Parliament, for the ministries, for the big ticket events. Get down to grassroots level, connect with youth at your level, and then bring those youths to the events, bring those youths to the conferences, or bring their opinions, bring their concerns to the level of which it could be heard. So definitely it's a twofold working together, but definitely we're on the right track, because this is the third installment of Youth Budget Talks, and I know there'll be more. And of course, the YPN is going to have more activities soon. So those are my contributions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nikolai. MP de Vignes.
Nikolai, thank you so much for your contribution, and thank you for your continued commitment to the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to say quickly, for you all as young people in Trinidad and Tobago, social media. People pretend like, it's just posting, but do not think for a second that we as parliamentarians do not see the TikToks and the Instagram posts, and even, I know Facebook is for old people according to y'all, but no, they say that, they say Facebook is for old people, right? So, but we see them and we do pay attention, and if you want to take it a step further, you can go and see your member of parliament. Feel free to go and see your member of parliament. Every single one of the parliamentarians has an office day that they are in the office. Me personally, mine is from 6 a.m. on a Thursday So yes, so I did that so people could see me before they go to work and school. And that's how seriously we take it. So go and see a parliamentarian, have a voice, and be part of the political conversation.
Thank you so much, MP de Vignes. Dr. Ali, do you also have parliament hours as well that they can visit you? Office hours, my apologies.
Yes, so my office hours are from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Apparently Facebook is for old people, but apparently, but all of my information is on Facebook. So feel free to visit my Facebook page. I do post quite a lot, and we are very responsive. So always feel free to reach out, get connected, and get your questions answered.
Thank you so much to the respective members of parliament. Just from a show of hands in the crowd, how many of you all still use Facebook? Oh boy. How many of you all use TikTok?
No.
All right. How many of you all use Instagram? All right. So parliament, we're taking notes, okay? All right. So we're going to continue back the conversation very quickly. We are now requesting that you keep your contribution within a minute, and we're keenly asking for persons who already made contributions to withhold, just to give an opportunity to the persons who are yet to contribute to give their voice, okay? Thank you. The floor is yours.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Judah Benny Beaumont, and I'm representing Yuri Roytech. I'll try to be as concise as possible. I hope my contributions are taken into consideration. My initial thoughts on the 2026 national budget is that it represents a genuine attempt to reset and rebuild confidence, especially through its focus on education, job creation, and fairness. As a young person, I could see that this budget tries to bridge the gap between recovery and opportunity. It speaks about modernization, innovation, and creating full-time, better-paying jobs, and that gives me hope. But as a young entrepreneur in the content creation and digital space, I also see it from another angle. This budget is opening a door to a new kind of economy, one that depends on skills, creativity, and technology. For youth like me, the question isn't just how much is being invested, but whether we're being equipped to participate in that new digital economy. That's why I want to focus on education and digital transformation today, because every opportunity starts with access to knowledge and the ability to use technology effectively. I just want to briefly say the summaries of the measures that were displayed in the budget. The laptops, 18,000 laptops, the upgraded school networks, teacher training, 15,000 educators to be trained in AI-driven teaching tools, the tertiary education gate maintained, all of those, right? But what's missing and what are the gaps? Connectivity and inequality. Many rural or lower income households still lack internet access, so digital learning cannot reach everyone. Practical skill development. There's a limited mention of entrepreneurship, creative media, or digital production training. The GATE sustainability. It's great that GATE remains, but we need clarity on how it will evolve to match new fields like digital media, tech, and green innovation, right? I would suggest that we expand free or low-cost broadband access in underserved communities, especially where digital learners struggle to connect. I'd also suggest that we establish youth innovative labs and creative studios in schools and tertiary institutions, hubs for content creation, coding, robotics, and digital business incubation. I will also add entrepreneurship and digital media modules to the, I will also add hubs for content creation, coding, robotics, and digital businesses, and add digital modules to the national curriculum, teaching students how to create income through technology and creativity. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also want to take this opportunity to let you all know, for those of you who are viewing online, we see you in the comments. Good morning to some of our youth members. We see Mr. Quincy Rodney, Miss Christian Ford, Sherry Ann Ram Logan, Marissa Balkisoon. We see you guys this morning, so if you're online, feel free to put your questions online. We'll be checking in. So the floor is yours, Mr. Ajay. Go ahead.
Good morning, all. My name is Ajay Balkisoon, representing UTT. To answer the first question, I find the budget was pleasing. It was balanced for the most part. I am pleased of that education got the largest allocation. However, I have a few concerns regarding this. When I looked at the draft budgets, the draft estimates of expenditure, I know that this will probably change, but I saw 1.7 billion allocated towards the Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training, right? My question is, how much of this would actually be used in terms of subventions for salaries for staff members? So if I speak on UTT specifically, there is a financial constraints, right? So subventions are used to cover salaries. If the government increases these subventions, they will be able to hire more staff. And I'm referring more to non-academic staff because, as one of my colleagues mentioned, student support services for students. This is something that is lacking. You have a large population of young people who are depressed, they are suicidal, the claim is that they just want to end it all because they just want to get rid of the pain. I think there is a need for us to focus on the mental health and the support services of the young individuals. I saw that there was a $10 million Research and Development and Impact Fund allocated towards the UE, which is absolutely fantastic. But my question is, specifically and explicitly, nothing was stated towards what is the allocation for UTT, because I saw that GATE is remaining, HELP is remaining, the HELP loan. The bursaries are there, 345 bursaries, coming up to $52 million, but UTT students don't have access to this. So is the government going to make these bursaries available to the National University of Trinidad and Tobago students, or are we going to be kept out of this? And I'm not speaking as just a student, I'm speaking as the president of the Student Guild at UTT here, right? I saw mention towards the scholarships where they're going to partner with Jamaica and India, but how much of this is going to be allocated towards new students coming into the institution to attract more students into the institution, as opposed to the continuing sports students? And then we see, and I'm not in any way, shape, or form trying to cause a debate here, but we see that they are going to refurbish the DBA UE campus, right? UTT campuses are in a mess. What allocation is put towards the facilities of these campuses? Because I'm seeing that they're going to use the UTT San Fernando Samuel Badri Cricket Academy for national training. But are they going to upgrade the facilities of this campus? You have the EKIAF campus, which is the prime agricultural institute training institute in the Caribbean, in the Eastern Caribbean. Are they going to put any allocations towards the facilities here, right? And now speaking from the standpoint of an agriculture student, 793.7 million towards upgrades, right? Infrastructure, agri-tech, whatnot and whatnot. I say this from the agriculture field. These things are simply buzzwords. I have not seen any implementations and actual any upgrades actually being done. And a lot of the money is stated to be used here and it's just promises, but I'm not seeing it actually done. My colleague mentioned the Youth in Agriculture programs, specifically the YAP program. But I want to also call out the Youth in Agriculture, the Youth Shade House program. Are these students and are these people going to just be left there because they would have wasted 2 to 3 years of their life hoping to get something out of this, hoping to be able to contribute back to our country and to help reduce the food import bill? But we're just talking about now we're going to implement a new 3-year program. What is going on with these people? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ajay.
Just to touch on that, I just want to remind you that this is a new government. So when you speak about 2 to 3 years ago and nothing is being done, I just want you to keep in mind that it's a new government and it's a new budget. So we just need to wait to see what this new government has to offer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ali. Before Kimberly, you get a chance to contribute, I just wanted to ask if there's any persons here representing Tobago or residing in Tobago. Right, so apart from any student, we'd like to turn the question now to our host. If you may, share some light on your perspective of the budget for Tobago, specifically as a young person.
Well, I think an interesting place to start, Karina, is that historically, when you look at the Tobago House of Assembly, it's seen different parties who would have assumed power, right? And one common denominator that we would have heard is that there was always an issue when it comes to the amount of funding the island received from central government. Now, we understand and appreciate that, with this last election, that the Tobago House of Assembly and the central government well appears to have a better working relationship. I'm just quoting what they would have said out in the media. And now we would have seen that the island would have received, for the first time in years, the largest allocation of the national budget. That's all good and well, no problem. Now, the question comes down to what is going on with autonomy. I'll come back to that. We understand that with this larger allocation, now the island can focus on areas that are central to us and the nuances that make us Tobagonians, such as tourism. Even when we trickle down to the area of youth development, which is something we are all passionate about, I want to see more programs coming out where young persons can, feel comfortable in not having to always take the part of academics. I think it's something that we are always speaking about, every year, is that, people have this stigma when it comes to academics. Like, yes, you have to go to school, you have to get a full certificate, you have to do KEEP, you have to go to university. But there are so many young persons on the island that are very gifted when it comes to their vocational skills. And I think we need to invest more revenue and I would like to see more energy into that, because I want to see that, for example, when you go down to Pigeon Point and you look at the boats and the jet skis and those just that whole marine life, how can young people be the driving force to develop that area? How can we have a more youthful touch too? When it comes to Pigeon Point, it's something different you are seeing, and I want young people to be at the forefront of that. But my main contention, which is just my personal opinion, is when it comes down to autonomy. When I look at the arguments on both sides, I think that the debate on Tobago's autonomy has become reduced too much to money, how much the island is getting, when on the surface, when in writing, autonomy is not about, finances or how much money I could get. It's a legal doctrine. How much can we constitutionally get? What are our rights? What are the decisions the island can make? And I think that if we can start shifting that conversation, using young people, of course, because, we are the tomorrow, we are more tech savvy, we bring that fresh perspective. If we can shift the conversation from how much the island is getting to, that constitutional right that the island deserves, I think then we can, reinvigorate the conversation around Tobago's autonomy. Because the reality is, Karina, if central government decides next budget to give Tobago 10% from the budget, it doesn't change the fact that the island doesn't have the decision-making powers that it is advocating for. So I think my point on Tobago's autonomy is that I would like to see the direction shifted in terms of the advocacy. Because too much from both sides is always about how much, if this bill had passed, the island would have get this, because this new party in power, the island is getting this. But the true essence of Tobago's autonomy is not so much more about the money, but more so, the decision-making powers we have in Parliament, well, from a legal doctrine.
Thank you so much, Luke. I want to just take this moment just to tell you all, our wonderful host today is not just a hoster. Luke is also 23 years old. He is championing the marginalized, voiceless, he's 24 years old now. He's a CARICOM Youth Ambassador for Trinidad and Tobago, the Tobago sector, and he's also the founder and president of the Tobago Students Association. So I'm glad that you made your contribution today to use to amplify your voice on the subject for Tobago.
The funny thing is, Karina, last year you were here. The conversation that came up right at this youth budget talk was the insufficiency of funding that Tobago received. We spoke about the DRC recommendation, we spoke about the history that went into it, and it's so pleasing that 1 year after we can see a difference in the conversation, because I think, especially surrounding youth budget talks or just budgets and young people, sometimes yearly we always say the same thing, it's always the same issue, youth are not included, we're always included after the fact. But I'm happy to see that, we are seeing some level of progress. It's slow, it's not where we would like it to be, but we are getting there. And I appreciate Parliament for just giving us that opportunity to have a platform to advocate and let the world know, like, hey, this is how I feel about this certain topic, and the most beautiful part of it all, Karina, is seeing that change. And, we being the part of the change that we want to see within this national framework. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Luke. So we're just going to take it back to the floor. Kimberly, we do apologize for having you waiting so long. Go ahead, Kimberly. The floor is yours.
Good morning, everyone. I'm representing the Willow Foundation. So to answer the first question, I think for me the budget was a bit ambitious, and I await the implementation and the explanation for a lot of things. The missing gaps where youth is concerned, I think there are a lot of youth organizations that are not always in formal settings or are in the room here with us, and also we need to look at the youth serving organizations as well. I know that the National Youth Policy of Trinidad and Tobago, it has to be redone. It's coming to that time again. So I think thinking and looking at having not just youth organizations, but also youth serving organizations, because they do have youth members or they do have a youth arm to participate in the policy. So I'm just going to try and keep this really short. So I'm a advocate, and I'm very much heavily involved in women's health. So one thing I must commend the minister for was the Women's Health Fund. And at a time where women's health and rights are being rolled back globally, Trinidad and Tobago, the health was allocated $8.2 billion, and with the Women's Health Fund, $5 million, which represents a major opportunity for gender equality and health justice. However, to ensure these investments deliver real-time impact, will the government integrate this fund into comprehensive policy framework, not only tackles period poverty, but also guarantees sustained access to HIV prevention and treatment, cervical cancer screening, and psychosocial support for girls and women facing stigma and discrimination? And critically, what will these measures safeguard women's bodily autonomy and make dignity a core public health priority rather than just a peripheral goal? And just to expand on that a bit, I'm hoping that the health minister, when we are doing the budget review, will give some insight into this. Will there be more training done for the helplines that already exist? So there's the HIV helpline, there's the suicide line, and also with the TTPS, there's the GBV unit. Will more resources be pumped into these units to get more active listeners for these helplines, have more support for not just the officers alone, but social workers? Will social workers be implemented into this program?
Thank you so much, Kimberly. I'd like to invite a member from the Youth Parliamentary Network to please step forward, Mr. Darian Cupid, as he makes his contribution very quickly.
Hello, everyone. Well, thank you for introducing me, Karina. Just to answer the question on how can you stay involved beyond this forum, I think the most important thing is to get involved. And by getting involved, you just make the first step. If you're in the room right now, a young person listening with us online, you've already made a great first step. So stay involved in youth conversations, stay involved in youth activities. There are many youth organizations in the room. Networking among the people in the room is very important. I guarantee you there's some organization that is there doing the work that you care about. Get involved with those people. And on the off chance that there isn't an organization doing something that you care about, start the organization. And that may sound a bit more difficult than it actually is. And for those of us who have been involved in organization, we just continue to do that and just give it your best. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So persons who had contributed, Darian Cupid and Nikolai Rampasad, they were on our youth budget talk, the pre-conversation last Thursday. So this is an opportunity for you to make sure you follow the Youth Parliament. The Trinidad and Tobago Parliament is on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. So make sure to get yourselves involved and your voices heard. So just to continue the conversation, I would like to invite the member for Trinidad and Tobago Youth Advocacy Network, or Youth Ambassadors. Sorry. Advocacy Network. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Gabrielle Simon, as Karina said, representing the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Advocacy Network. So, overall, I think that the 2025 budget shows strong intent, especially with education, national security, and digital transformation. I do love the initiative, the Women's Health Fund. I really appreciate it. It was one of the measures that stood out to me because it shows a real commitment to health and equity. But intent alone isn't enough. Implementation is key. As Minister of Finance, Tanku said, the importance of restoring confidence and fiscal stability. But we also need to see these allocations translate into real impact for everyday life. Speaking personally, I spent a year living in the south and working in Port of Spain, often relying on the PTSC buses to get to and from work. The fare is extremely affordable, especially from areas like Point Fortin. But the cost isn't just financial. Long hours stuck in traffic took a toll on mental health, energy levels, and overall productivity. Even with flexi hours, traffic remained a daily challenge. Forward-thinking solutions like remote work options, digital access to government services, and improved transport infrastructure could help reduce these pressures, saving time and improving quality of life, something this budget could support if the digital and youth-focused initiatives are fully implemented. Another point I was disappointed with is that there were no funds allocated for sport and culture. Our young athletes and cultural practitioners need consistent support to grow their talent and to inspire the nation.
I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. Would you like to just step forward a bit closer to the mic?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you. And you
Another
have 30
point-
seconds to wrap up your contribution.
Another point I was disappointed with is that there were no funds allocated for sport and culture. Our young athletes and cultural practitioners need consistent support to grow their talent and inspire the nation. Without this recognition, only comes after the international success instead of encouraging them beforehand. Finally, as more of our lives move online, data protection and privacy are critical, and we need accessible, transparent reporting so that young people and the public can track allocations and hold decision makers accountable. My ask is simple. As we invest in digital solutions, education, and youth-focused programs, let's make them accessible, secure, practical, transparent, and proactive so that youth, athletes, and communities can truly benefit. And the budget delivers real, measurable results that people can feel in their daily lives.
Thank you so very much. So what I'd like to do, unfortunately for time, we can only have the person to remain in the line for the first contribution that you are giving. If you have not given a contribution, please remain in the line. If you have already contributed, we're going to have to ask you to kindly have a seat just for time, okay? Because it is 11:27, and I'm very sorry at this time. This is only for the opportunity for persons to give a contribution who have yet to speak. Thank you so much.
Just
The
before
floor
the
is
next
yours, sir.
the next speaker comes, right? Quick one for you guys, right? So we've heard a lot so far. We heard the budget was well balanced and so forth. But I want to be a bit provocative here. Thus far, I haven't heard anybody mention anything on, national security, anti-crime, etc. Do you guys feel safe? Okay. I see you guys.
Okay, so the floor is yours. Is it Elijah?
Yes,
Go ahead.
it is. Hello, good morning, everyone. My name is Elijah French. I represent the University of Trinidad and Tobago Chaguaramas campus. And my revision of the 2025-2026 budget was ambitious, to say the least, but I look forward to how it would be implemented and enforced. Particularly, just 2 points of interest would be the asset levy. I believe they have a 0.25 tax on banks and insurance. I look forward to a framework that would protect consumers from the increased cost of borrowing, and also the landlord tax. I look forward to how compliance will be enforced. So moving on now to more maritime sector, I was a bit disappointed with the a lack of substantial contributions to the maritime sector development. I believe that there could have been a bit more line items with regard to its there were a bit line items to like project names under anything blue economy, and also in terms of levying maritime position for trade, logistics, and also how our ports and would be levied for economic growth. And I would like to I await further on information how we are investing enough to modernize our ports and shipping infrastructure and making our ports more competitive with others within the region, and how would we be more prepared for discrepancies in maritime trade, for example, fuel cost, shipping delays, and also transport allocation, because the port is only as good as it's being supported via infrastructure, roads and other areas. I see that 1.84 billion is directed to transport allocation. I would like to further see if any of those funds will be transferred to sea efficiency, and also I would like to see more targeted investment in training facilities and certification. And also, as a maritime student, I see an opportunity for Trinidad and Tobago to better integrate its ocean space into economic planning, because we have the geography, we have the talent and the potential. And I just think that it's about time that the budget implements a more substantial blue economy plan with annual budget backing, and also to further integrate the students into the maritime field. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Elijah, for such a great contribution. Before Ryan takes the floor with us, I want to just ask very briefly our moderators here this morning, Dr. Ali and Mr. Devines in particular. This is the first time you all are both with us serving as members of Parliament. What are your contributions thus far in terms of how do you feel about it? You all are also young persons as well. Dr. Ali, can you share your age with us? And Dr. Devines after. Ali, how old are you, if you don't mind?
So I am actually the youngest parliamentarian in the House. I am 28 years old. And having said that, I am so happy to see all of you here today, because as you know, many of your peers, they're not interested in politics, they're not interested in these things, and it was something that was always very frustrating to me. Everybody, growing up would always be like, I know, why you care about that, why you listening to the budget, we have nothing to do with politics. And, it was quite frustrating that younger persons did not understand the importance of it. So I commend all of you here for participating, for understanding this importance, and I hope that you take it back to your peers, you have these discussions with them, you share these ideas with them, because the future is ours.
Just to share with you all, Dr. Aiyna Ali is the Member of Parliament for Princesstown, and she's also the Deputy Speaker of the House and serving with the government bench. Mr. Devines.
Thank you very much. I am actually 40 years old. I'm not the youngest parliamentarian by no stretch. Yeah, thank you for the compliment that I don't look like 40. But from, again, being in the entertainment industry does keep you young in a lot of ways, because you have to be in contact and understand the current trends and current circumstances around us. This has been an amazing experience thus far, and if not you, then who? If not you, then who? So it was one of those things for me where, people said, you would be good at this, and then there were the people that would say, why would you go serve and put yourself in a circumstance where you are more vulnerable and people can attack you in different ways? And I said, it's national service. And that's what this is for me. It's not about being in power. A lot of people say, when we were in power, and it's power, and we are in power now. It's not power. This is a job of service above everything. And that is what we as parliamentarians must always remember. And I do look forward for the day, if God spares life and allows it to happen, that I am in a debate with you all, whether with
or against?
Thank you so much, Mr. Devines. Mr. Hans Devines is the Member of Parliament for Diego Martin West, serving in the opposition bench. So we're just going to go back to the floor. Mr. Ryan, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you and good morning to everyone. My name is Ryan Duncan, a National Youth Parliamentarian and a proud member of the Youth Parliamentary Alumni. Now, as young people, we often talk about the future. But the truth is, the future begins with what is budgeted for us today. And this year, education remains one of the biggest areas of investment, with TT 8.76 billion allocated to the Ministry of Education. That is one of the largest commitments in this year's national budget. This funding supports 20,000 book grants, 18,000 laptops for Form 1 students, and $10 million for digital upgrades for 456 primary schools. We'll also see the rollout of a new literacy and numeracy series and the expansion of the UE Davie campus, offering programs in law, IT, and artificial intelligence, areas that speak directly to the skills of the future. Now, these are the steps in the right direction, and as youth, we should acknowledge progress where it's due. But we also have a responsibility to keep watch. Our question shouldn't only be about how much was spent, but how will it be utilized and how will it be spent? Will these laptops actually reach every student? Will rural schools get the same upgrades as urban ones? Will graduates have real opportunities waiting for them after they finish studying? Education is not just a line in a budget, it's a promise that every young person, no matter where they live or what they can afford, should have equal access to learn, growth, and contribute. So as youth advocates, let's do more than listen. Let's stay informed, ask questions, and hold our leaders accountable. Because when we engage with this budget, we're not being political. We're being responsible young leaders of this citizen who cares about the kind of Trinidad and Tobago we want to inherit. And I would also like to say that, I want to see a lot of more agriculture getting into the education sector because, agriculture offers job opportunities. It brings out the skills in our youth. And I think that this year's, the allocation towards agriculture was very low because, our food import bill continues to be above 3 billion plus. And I think that more money should just go into the agriculture sector to get our youth engaged and involved. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ryan, for your contribution. Before Soleil approaches the floor, I do know that my colleague, Ricardo, fellow moderator, also raised the question of crime. If any one of you had a contribution on crime before Soleil contributes, I'll take Ms. Walcott, Aiyna Walcott, if you can come to the front, please. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Aiyna Walcott, and I will be representing for Sewell TT. So, seeing that nobody has took a stab at crime, I will take the bold stance. So, the allocation of funds this year in the fiscal budget for the 3 arms of national security was 6.366 billion to be exact. This is one of the largest areas in this year's budget. However, despite consistent billion-dollar allocation to national security, crime rates remain stubbornly high. Murders, home invasions, and gender-based violence continues to rise. And I know the finance minister, he implied that crime has trickled down by a vague number of 40%. But, however, the question still arises, why hasn't the public felt safer? Also, I'd like to touch on whether the repeated spending on new police vehicles every fiscal year is merely a good measure. Every fiscal year, new police vehicles are purchased, yet community reports slower response times, lack of visible patrols, and poor maintenance of those very said vehicles. As seen in the last budget, police vehicles received at least 23 million for 67 new vehicles. Ascribable to this repetitive spending, I must ask, are we buying vehicles for visibility or for results? I believe as young people, we must ask what measurable differences these purchases have made in crime reduction and whether funds could be redirected towards something better like community policing and preventative programs. And lastly, since we're riding the wave of crime, I want to touch on the home invasion bill. So while this bill empowers citizens, it could have dangerous consequences without proper safeguarding, as it risks promoting vigilantism and unequal enforcement depending on class or community. I believe that we cannot legislate fear into freedom, whereas we must ensure that laws protect citizens, not justify chaos. So coming to my second point very quickly, I want to talk about the digitization and AI. So in regards to this, seeing that we're in an era of digitization, I must commend the government's digital transformation agenda as it represents a necessary step forward. But progress without inclusion cannot easily become exclusion. I do believe that this perpetuates a digital divide, as we must also consider those who could be left behind. So for example, the elderly, the impoverished, those who lack access to stable internet, smart devices, or digital literacy. I believe it's important for the government to ensure that while technology makes lives easier, it also remains inclusive and accessible to everyone, not just the tech-savvy. So feeding into that, the government needs to take into account that we cannot build a digital republic on a foundation of digital inequality. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Walcott. I'd like to take the student who is representing
Upper Level Educational Institute.
1 second, right? Just make sure the mic, we need you to speak into it, okay?
Yes.
So you say your name and the school that you represent. Thank you.
My name is Zia Baksh, and I'm from Upper Level Educational Institute. And I think the budget yesterday was greatly appreciated and, as previously stated, very balanced, especially as we said before in sectors like education, with how they were providing for special needs, for exam concessions and so on, as well as healthcare and the creation of jobs, especially with Trinidad Steel Company and in sectors like design or fashion. However, along with that, it has the provision of youth development programs such as the YBTT. However, I'd like to beg the question that even with the development of competency from these programs and the availability of jobs, will it be easier to acquire the jobs, get access to these jobs? When people finish these programs, a lot of the times they have a hard time getting access to the jobs. So I could propose that they could have internship or apprenticeship afterwards, or special grants as well to start businesses. The second point I'd like to propose is that a lot of the programs that they presented yesterday were focused on certain regions. And as said before, the rural regions may be not as accounted for, especially to the context they're in, as though they may not be able to afford certain things. So I could propose mobile training. And as he said before, that training and experience is something that's always needed when you...
Thank you so much for your contribution. We'd now like to invite, we only have room for maybe 3 more contributions. So for the 2 gentlemen that contributed already, you got to contribute already? Okay.
So you did speak already. That's good.
Okay, so we're going to take the 2 ladies first, okay? So Soleil, go ahead.
A pleasant good morning to each and everyone here. Allow me to first congratulate the Honorable Minister of Finance on his delivery of the budget, and I commend the government for recognizing that young people are the cornerstone of national renewal. I am especially grateful for the investments outlined, as these initiatives show a government listening to the needs of its people and prioritizing opportunity and inclusion. For that, I express my sincerest appreciation. But with gratitude must have action. So I would like to address Ms. Nannon's question. I propose that Parliament should establish a permanent committee on youth affairs, ensuring that youth voices remain embedded in policy discussions all year round. This committee could receive regular reports from youth organizations and non-profit organizations and guide ministries on youth-centered priorities. Secondly, we should institutionalize an annual national youth consultation where the Parliament and youth leaders review what was promised, what has been achieved, and where improvement is needed. As Mr. Tanku said, promise made, promise kept. So youth should hold them accountable and make sure these promises are kept. And thirdly, empower youth organizations to create public accountability platforms, digital spaces where we can track the government commitments, measure their impact, and celebrate the progress together as a nation. Youth are not only asking for recognition, we want partnership. We want to be part of the process. Our voices must not fade in the background after the budget is debated. We must continue to shape the future with its promises. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Soleil. Excellent contribution, sir. Your turn, yes, sir.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just letting you all know that we're at the 15-minute mark. So this is just a gentle reminder to keep your contributions as impactful and concise as can be, as any advocacy campaign is very concise yet impactful.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, finally. Okay. Let's touch on national security first to answer MPD Vignes' question about what I disagree or agree with. Firstly, I won't say that I disagree with it. It's more of a concern. In the draft estimates, there were mentions of 800 special reserve officers observed and 67 new vehicles, as well as 500 new prison officers to be administered. All right. My question is this. Every year, the budget always talks about more manpower and more vehicles. A sole focus on quantity, but I ask, where is the focus on quality? Why not allocate funding to retraining and rebuilding the quality of officers so that when arrests are made to the would-be criminals, procedures and investigations are followed through thoroughly and properly. So when handed over to the prosecutors, they are able to present proper findings for a conviction if guilty. Another area of concern relates to the increased year gap with respect to importation of foreign use vehicles. We've heard Karina spoke about her personal hardship when it relates to traffic, but we all face these challenges. An increased year gap for imported foreign use vehicles will inevitably result in more cars on the road, thus perpetuating the endless cycle of traffic. We are yet to hear how this administration intends to combat these challenges. Yes, I know it's been 6 months, but let's see. Lastly, to answer another of our panel members' questions, I am currently not a member of Youth Parliament, so I'm not sure if there are implementations in place already. However, I do have a recommendation. Based on the question posed on decision-making inclusion, today's budget talks are being heard by sitting MPs and the wider public. I think it would be beneficial to host talks like these at least once every quarter to always keep our younger population opinions and recommendations as part of our leaders' decision-making process. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I see only one more person to the floor.
While she makes her way to the floor, I just want to be a bit provocative again. I want you guys to think about one word, that you would use to describe the 2025-2026 budget. We've heard balance, we've heard appreciated, etc. Sorry? We've heard vague. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ali. So, let it resonate with you a bit as we are about to close things off. How would you describe the budget in terms of a youth and from a youth's perspective? Yeah? Over to you.
Hi, everybody. I'm going to keep it very short. Based on your question, I don't think the budget was gender inclusive. It was more focused on allocating funds rather than, inclusivity. So, very brief, over the years, Trinidad and Tobago has witnessed an alarming increase in violent murders targeting women, including both horrific crimes and those arising from domestic abuse. And I noted with interest that the Minister of Finance is going to allocate $5 million in collaboration with the Ministry of the People in terms of the Women's Health Fund, right? Which is a commendable initiative because I believe young girls and women in undeserving communities, especially rural areas, will benefit from this. However, the budget speech provided limited detail on how the government plans to address the pressing issue of women who are brutally murdered, even trafficked, or those who are in ongoing abusive relationships, right? I think it's equally important, and there was little mention of concrete steps to strengthen existing agencies and services to rehabilitate survivors of such violence, and in terms of providing comprehensive support. And no clear strategies and accountability measures were mentioned in terms of the Women's Health Fund, and it shouldn't only not provide preventative health care, but it should also address the whole full spectrum of violence against women. That's just my short contribution.
Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take one last contribution from the gentleman in the back. Can you keep it less than a minute, please?
Thank you so much for allowing me to contribute again. I want to touch on, again, the over-reliance of the energy sector and the brown economy. The Dutch disease syndrome, for whoever know that concept, we could reflect back on the COVID-19 pandemic, and we see that the price of the oil was actually lower than the actual barrel. And also, I want to know the assumed price, this budget was based on would have been $77.80 per barrel of oil and $3.59 per million British units, right? I want to see how the government plans to send up that price, and also what does that do for non-STEM graduates, fewer jobs for the non-STEM graduates. Also, with tertiary education, we talk about digitalization, but I heard one point concerning PTSE buses and electronic PTSE buses coming into play. I would like to know if also tertiary education students could be given free transport with the PTSE buses, because myself going UWI, as long as we have the student ID, I think we deserve free transport also. Another thing is we talk so much about digitization with health and security, yet still when we go into the police station to make a report, would that paper-based system be replaced? Would they still be taking reports handwritten? And also we talk about implementing AI and digitization to capture the criminals, but we don't mention the actual user interface for people going to make the report. Another thing that I have would be health, same thing, similar to the police stations. And my overall solution for the budget would be performance-based budgeting, make the audience aware of the literacy rate, the Human Development Index figures, and tell us how the money allocated per sector would have impacted that. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
so much for your contribution, sir. I see a gentleman in the back who has yet to contribute. Yes, sir. Please step forward.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Weeks, and I represent Trinidad and Tobago Youth Ambassadors. As a young person, I see the 2025-2026 budget as a step toward youth empowerment. It focuses on education, digital technology, health, and job creation, all areas that affect us directly. The return of laptop program investment in creation industries and support for skills training give hope for more opportunities. However, more can be done to create jobs and support community projects. Overall, this budget shows and recognizes that young people are key to building a stronger, smarter Trinidad and Tobago. I also want to touch on agriculture. Although agriculture in the 2025-26 budget has received one of the most significant boosts in years, signaling a shift towards self-sufficiency and resilience. However, these implementation must be people-centered, technology-driven, and youth-focused. Suggestions for improvement are provide internships and mentorship programs through the Youth Agricultural Fund, as well as promote success stories of young agripreneurs through media to change the perspective of farming itself. This would impact us to build a new generation of skilled, tech-savvy farmers. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. At this point in time, I'll take the St. Joseph's Convent students, but you will only have a minute or less to contribute, okay? Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to touch on two of the questions that the panel would have raised. Earlier, they asked what are our thoughts on the retirement age. So I think there's a really nuanced approach in the way that we view the raising of the retirement age. You know, on one hand, it increases our tax revenue and it reduces the pension payments. However, it can negatively affect the health. You know, we already have a subsidized health system in place, but now that people are retiring at later ages, you know, they are more likely to succumb to like health diseases and stuff. And so now more money is going to have to be poured into taking care of our aging population, which could be given, that money could be allocated to us, the youth, you know. If there are more people working for longer amount of times, we need to wait on them to retire and then create opportunities for us. And then lastly, he asked what was our thoughts on the budget, you know, this provocative question. I would say that it was very grandeur because yes, promises are being made, but how much of these promises are actually going to be kept is what we need to focus on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your contributions. Give yourselves a round of applause for amazing contributions this morning. I want to just ask, because we are only 5 minutes into the question, just by the raise of hands, how many of you all feel hopeful with this budget that was presented? Go ahead, put the hand straight up in the air so the camera can see. How many of you all are more skeptical about the direction of the budget? All right, so we have some mixed views. All right, thank you so much. I just want to say before handing it over, before we close, I would like for you all to take into consideration the one word that you thought the budget meant to you. And we're gonna, you know, you're gonna say it as much as you can. But there are a few people in this room who were not able to contribute at all. This young lady here. So I'm gonna first take her. What's your name, darling? Charlotte? Yes. Charlotte, can you approach the mic and tell us your one word that you thought about the 2025-2026 budget, or a phrase?
Hi everyone, my name is Charlotte. So when he initially asked the question earlier, my word was balanced. And before you asked us to raise our hands just now, my other word was hopeful. So I am very hopeful to see what comes from the budget. Yeah. Thank you.
Charlotte, can you just tell us the organization that you're representing today and your full name? Thank you.
My name is Charlotte Wingham, and I represent Titian, Trinidad and Tobago Youth Advocacy Network. Sorry, guys, I'm a bit nervous.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you. Did anybody else did not get a chance to contribute? Okay, go ahead. I see a hand up. Tell us in one word and in one phrase what the 2025-2026 budget meant to you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Madison Sukram of the National Youth Ambassadors, also a proud Lower 6 student of Astra Girls College, San Fernando. One word that I would use to describe the budget is hopeful, because I think based on this session that we had today, everybody's conclusions were, well, we can't wait to see the implementations, we can't wait to see how the debate goes, we can't wait to see that. And but I share the same sentiments. I cannot wait to see how the budget is amended. And I want to reinforce that as youth, the conversation does not end here. After Friday, I want to see youths active. I want to see us in the conversation, because that is the meat of the matter. So that's all I can say. We need to be really hopeful as youths, because we are the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much to everybody. MP Hans, Vignes, was one word. One word only, yes, sir? One word.
I rather reserve my thoughts when it's my turn to speak in Parliament.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Vignes. Dr. Ali, one word.
Excellent.
Excellent, okay.
Yes.
Mr. Luke Jamestrom.
I have 3 words: waiting for context.
Mr. Ricardo Rollock.
I will go with interesting. I'll be short. I definitely am going to be looking on for Friday and what comes next as well. And I think you guys should too as well. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So I just want to say it has been a pleasure to moderate alongside MP Hans de Vignes, the Deputy Speaker of the House, Dr. Aiyna Ali, Mr. Ricardo Rollock, our co-host, Mr. Luke James Trim. So I'm going to hand it over to him so he can give in closing. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Karina. Ladies and gentlemen, let's give all moderators a hand. So like we all know, all good things must come to an end. We are all out of time, but this was Youth Budget Talks 2025. I think that the discussions today were extremely dynamic. They were very pertinent. I really enjoy how well researched you all were. That is something that I always admire with young people when we are able to speak with that level of authority. Like I said earlier, waiting for more context, I think we all can agree that we will be tuning in on Friday just to get more context with how this fiscal 2026 package will be spent. You know, I just want to say thank you for everyone that believe in the youth, that believe in the vision. I believe that the Youth Parliamentary Network, by extent, us as young people, we are very important in this space, and we add a lot of flavor and importance to the space. For those of you who are tuning in, feel free to follow Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago on our Instagram at TT Parliament 1, Facebook TT Parliament, YouTube on ParlView and TT Parliament, and please, please, please follow the Trinidad and Tobago Youth Parliament at TT Youth Parliament on Instagram and Facebook, and PAL Committees at TT PAL Committees on Instagram and Facebook. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Luke James Shrim, and it was my absolute pleasure being your host for Youth Budget Talks 2025.